Good evening and welcome to the world-famous Bike Shed Motorcycle Club. This is possibly the coolest place you could come if you love two wheels, and particularly if you love bespoke, customized motorcycles. This evening represents the first global closed-room opportunity to spend time with ARC, get to know the people and the product, the Vector. Now, Vector has been praised broadly since it was launched at the EICMA Motor Show last year. Wired magazine labelled Vector as the high-tech electric motorcycle of 2019. Top Gear, I think we've all heard of Top Gear, right? 2 weeks ago, they ran a story praising Vector, and the first question in that story was, is this the motorcycle of the future? 2 weeks on, we say no. It's the motorcycle of now. Ladies and gentlemen, Vector. And we've met the machine. The machine is indeed beautiful. I won't comment on how beautiful Mark is. This is the man behind the machine. The CEO of ARC and the brains behind Vector, Mark Truman. Mark, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone joining us tonight.
So, we're going to run through a quick kind of Q&A, just find out a bit more information about the bike and the brand. If you have any questions, please do raise your hand and throw them at us. If not, we will talk to you afterwards. We'll take a Q&A session then. So, many people here obviously have seen Vector in the press because it's been so broadly covered. Yeah. What about ARC, the company? I mean, little is known about the business apart from what's been in the press. Can you shed some light on how it all began and what the aspirations are?
Yeah, sure. So the business actually started within Jaguar Land Rover. So myself and some of the other members of the ARC team here used to run a team called Whitespace. So this is Jaguar Land Rover's kind of secret, you know, Google X, or let's call it crazy ideas with commercial opportunities. And this was one of the crazy ideas that we came up with. It was a little bit too crazy for Jaguar Land Rover. Yeah. But they loved it. The board of directors basically said, look, we love this program. You know, look, we're going to support you. You're free to take this away and basically spin it out as a separate business. So we're now a completely autonomous business and we follow our own path. Okay, so your own path, what does that mean? Is it, what have you been allowed to do now? What's your future aspiration? Where do you think it's going? Yeah, well, look, I mean, you know, this business is all about experience. It's all about the journey, you know, whether that be through the cutting edge technological product or whether it be through the customer experience. But, you know, a lot of motorcycle and car manufacturers claim to be exactly the same as that. I think maybe where we differ is that we're trying to protect something that we love into the future. So, you know, petrol engines, unfortunately, aren't going to be around forever. And we want to make sure that we've got something bloody cool to ride that when they're not here anymore, yeah, right? Because some of the other electric machines out there maybe aren't the most inspiring. Yeah. So we want to buck that trend. We also want to make sure that in a brave new world of autonomous vehicles, we're still allowed to ride motorbikes. Because, you know, what's going to happen in 10 years' time is, you know, you can see it now. Who's the first person they're not going to want on the road? It's those crazy people on motorcycles that, you know, we don't know what they're going to do, and, you know, we can't see what they're doing. So, you know, this bike is connectable to the Internet of Things. It will be compatible in a world of autonomous vehicles. And so, really, rather than have legislation thrust upon us, we want to make sure that as a brand we are, you know, leading that discussion and kind of driving it forward. Yeah,
I think I said to you when I first joined the project, it's in my 20-something years of motorcycling, it's the first electric bike I've looked at and said it feels like an actual motorbike. It's got all that character about it. So if we take a look at the bike, I mean, everyone's been commenting it already. We've been through some of the architecture with people standing around, and I think the best place to start really is the monocoque, right? The carbon fiber box in the center.
Yeah, I mean, this is where this bike fundamentally differs from any other motorcycle that's ever existed. You know, there's no frame on this motorcycle, there's no chassis. You know, the battery, and this is the battery, there's no additional lovely aesthetic covers making it look beautiful. That is the battery, and everything else just plugs to that. I mean, we don't have to cradle a petrol engine on this bike, so why can't we rewrite the rules of how a motorcycle is manufactured and built and how it looks? Trying to make an electric bike that looks like a petrol bike for me is a kind of misnomer. Yeah. So we want this to be different. It is different.
Yeah, I think that kind of technology that we've seen in Formula One, MotoGP, that rigid central monocoque design, then that gives you a lot of support for the other components that are bolted onto it, right? So the swing arms and that. Talk us through this front end. I mean, that's pretty special.
So first of all, the swing arms, these are fully carbon fiber swing arms made by the same people that make carbon fiber swing arms for MotoGP and the Ducati Superleggera, but as were designed by a MotoGP chief engineer. An awful lot of work has gone into making sure that this is the perfect system. Obviously, having a carbon fiber monocoque means that we have a very stiff chassis, but for a bike to have the perfect handling, it has to have some lateral flex in the system. And so, we've done an awful lot of work to make sure that that lateral flex is put in through the swing arms effectively.
Yeah, and that sort of detail you're talking about there with the flex and the feel of the bike, I mean, a lot of people have said, is the bike quite harsh because it's carbon fiber? But actually, no, with the front suspension design, there's a reason why that doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, so on a forked bike, the way that all of the braking force essentially goes through the whole system, and the reason that your springs are so stiff on a high performance bike is because to stop you diving forward when you brake. Yeah. On this type of system, the energy goes straight into the chassis rather than kind of taking this convoluted route up high, which creates this moment. So we're actually able to run a much softer spring on this bike. So it's basically kind of like, imagine a cruiser comfort, but with MotoGP performance. That's effectively what this kind of system gives you.
Yeah, and I guess for those of us in the room who are not maybe so technical, things like the head angle, which change the way a bike turns into a corner and how directly it handles, yeah. Right? That you can do some special things with that too.
Again, I mean, one of the deficiencies with forks is that, you have to have this fairly, obtuse angle with the forks. So, you're looking at 23, 24 degrees at an absolute minimum. Yeah. This is 18.5 degrees. So this is razor sharp handling. Yeah. And in terms of the way this bike steers, the way it changes direction, people that are old enough to have ridden, like FZR 400s and RGV 250 two-strokes, yeah. It feels like that kind of bike rather than something that's kind of akin to 1000cc.
Fantastic. Obviously, fantastically capable chassis, the best quality, but premium materials, amazing machining and finishing. But what's under the skin? The motor. What are the figures? What kind of performance are we getting out of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things I should point out first of all is that the bikes that are here this evening are effectively, prototypes, and we're running on these bikes off-the-shelf motors, which are slightly wider than we want them to be, but unfortunately that's just how they come, which is why we've got these kind of two bulges on the side of the bike. The next generation of bikes, which are just about to be built, have our own motor. So we've been developing our own motor. It's much more powerful, it's much more lightweight, and it's much narrower as well. So effectively, those bulges on the side of the bike, they will be removed. The bike will be a little bit slimmer in that area, and we'll also have belt drive. So we're constrained to have chain on this bike with this motor because of the width of it. On the new bikes, we'll be moving to belt drive. We feel that's more akin to the kind of customer that's going to want this bike. Yeah. They're not like me, wants to spend all weekend with the spanners, messing around, right? So, really, it's going to be a real leap forward for the product, having this, much more powerful motor.
Sure. And talking of leaps forward, I mean, so the product is one thing, but I think the thing that impresses me most about this is the level of we were talking before, weren't we, about the level of personalisation and detail that goes into this, the number of things that can be changed to personalise the bike, which starts with the jacket and the helmet, right, over here, if Lisa doesn't mind being in the spotlight.
No, sure. So, the jacket and the helmet, when you're starting a new business like this, a new brand, you have to decide what you're going to focus on, what's going to be your USP. If you go and try and make a better sports bike than Ducati, well then, or a better off-roader than KTM, then you're probably gonna not do too well. Exactly. So for us, this was about what are we going to focus on, and for us, it was about what we call human-machine interface. So this is really an automotive term that's used a lot in the car industry, but almost never in the bike industry. So this is a way that someone connects with their machine. And so we've developed a head-up display helmet. So this is a projection-based head-up display helmet. This is exactly what fighter pilots use, and that technology has then been put into one of our helmets. It also comes with a haptic jacket. So think about your jacket. Think about the type of technology you have on your car, where maybe a light comes on in your wing mirror to tell you they have a car coming up behind you. Well, on this system, you'll start to get a tap on your back when there is a car approaching you, and that tap will get further up your back the closer the car gets, and the speed of that transition will give you an idea about the closing speed of the car. So, this is a kind of three-part system. I should also mention that the helmet is actually the key to the bike, so like you might be able to walk up to your car with your key in your pocket and just drive away. You can do that with the bike. You wear the helmet, within 1 meter, the bike is able to start, and effectively you can ride away.
Fantastic. And then that bespoke element comes through to the bike. I mean, this is flax, I think you call it. And
Yep.
we've got another bike over there, which is a walnut burr veneer,
Which we call the humidor spec.
Yeah, humidor spec.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely not to everyone's taste, but
No.
yeah, we kind of quite like it. And Prince Andrew saw it last night at St James's Palace. He absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So look, everything on this bike is bespokeable. You are any leather choices, any material choices, any color choices, changes of stitching. Think about being tailor fitted, literally Savile Row style, for your haptic jacket and for the leather jacket as well that goes on there. Headon, who we've partnered with on the helmet. I don't know if Lindsay's here somewhere. Hey, Lindsay. Lindsay is one of the founders of Headon, and we've partnered with them on the helmet. It seemed like the natural choice for us. We're kind of, we're like that. We've put our technology in one of their helmets, so you go to Headon, they will literally scan your head, and we will have the EPS in the helmet made specifically for you. We're the only people in the world that will do that. So that's completely one-off helmet as well. So, this is not like going into a dealership and buying a motorcycle. This is like going to Paris and having a pair of Purdy shotguns made for you.
Absolutely. And I think I just wanted to come back to the veneer for a second because, so many manufacturers, particularly in the car world, they play on this kind of bespoke element when truly there's still a big line of people making that bespoke element for you. Whereas this is a couple of guys who build surfboards.
Yeah, so
beautiful bespoke surfboards.
Someone that was interested in purchasing one of the products basically said, could you do something with some kind of veneer on there? We wanted that wooden, almost like shotgun look.
Yeah.
We were like, maybe. So we took it to some friends of mine who make very expensive paddle boards for yacht owners. Yeah. And I took them a top panel and I said, look, do you think you could veneer this? Yeah. And they said, look, give us a couple of weeks, and that's what came back.
Brilliant. All right, okay, I think we've spent enough time on the bike. If we just touch on a few things in the room, just so you guys know what to expect from this evening. We'll start with this projection mapping machine, which obviously started with a light show and some music.
Did you like the show?
Yes!
Good. So,
that's the right answer.
Look, we never just create these things for show's sake. I mean, it's a bit like the bike. There's nothing on there that doesn't need to be there, and we like to be the same about everything that we do. So this was actually created as a configurator. So, that's a fairly lightweight piece of foam. We can take that anywhere in the world. We can set this up in 20 minutes in your front room, and we can bespoke a motorcycle. We can take it through all of the options, all of the color options. The guys are just going to flick through some of the kind of presets that have been created. But imagine being able to effectively change the color of every element of that. And in the light here, it's not as good as it is in the absolute pitch black. Trust me, it's quite an atmospheric experience. So that's the configurator.
And then over in that corner over there is a concrete bike, which is a virtual reality experience. Yeah. Who people have sat on already, I think.
Yeah. Now, I encourage you all to go and have a go on that, because that effectively will show you what the head-up display helmet looks like. And we've also got a helmet here with a head-up display in it. I think if you find Tom, one of our guys later, I think the helmet's over there somewhere, you can have a look at what that head-up display looks like. But you can also try out the haptic jacket. So there's a 3-minute experience there. You can wear the haptic jacket, you can start to understand what it is and what it does and what it feels like and why we've done it. But the reason we've created it wasn't really for the public and people to use. We created it as a way of rapid prototyping the system. So we know you have this crazy idea, and then you go, okay, well, how are we going to prove if this works? I can either spend it's a lot of money to make the real one when I'm not quite sure, or we can find another way of rapid prototyping this system. So we built this as a way of testing it, seeing if it worked. We can adjust the graphics, what colors work, in what lights, etc. What tap on the shoulder is the perfect thing to tell you that there's a car behind you. And that's the way that we refined the system before we actually built the real thing.
Great. So now you all have the opportunity to talk to anyone with a ARC pin on. If you've got any questions now, we'll take them now for Mark, and I'll hand out the microphone.
Hi there. Firstly, the bike looks amazing.
Thank you.
Is it the jacket or the bike that could sense the car coming past?
So actually it's both. If you go through the experience, you'll see, you'll get, so car comes behind you. You be the car. It's on that side. The first thing that happens is the rear view camera that's on the back of your helmet comes up in your helmet so you can see it. You then get a distance indicator which tells you visually how close that car is, and you start to get this tap on the back from the jacket. So it's a multi-layered, multi-sensory system. If you've ridden a motorcycle through Paris or Mumbai or anywhere like that, sometimes it's not the most enjoyable experience, especially if you don't know the city. So this is just to give you an extra level of comfort. You know, people say, is this a distracting thing? Well, I'm like, no, this is about freeing you to enjoy that ride through the city as much as you can.
Are you planning on doing any other models?
Well, that's something we didn't really touch on, was it, in the speech earlier, but we can go into it. The monocoque design is one that lends it to future models, right?
So the key thing that we developed here initially wasn't the motorcycle, it was the battery construction philosophy. So think about batteries like Lego bricks, and those Lego bricks just happen to be stacked in the shape of a motorcycle here. But there's no reason why you couldn't stack those batteries to be like a quad bike or an ATV or even a jet ski or a snowmobile. So maybe that's the future of ARC.
Watch this space.
Mark, what's the kind of time frame from a bespoke consultation to delivery of one's perfect bike?
So the first bikes will be delivered to their customers in Q3 next year. But you're looking really at a kind of 6-month process. Obviously, there's a couple of different consultations. You know, you have to have your head scanned. The EPS has to be created with you. These things aren't done in, you know, a few weeks. So, you know, you're looking at really a kind of 6-month process from the moment that you say, I desperately want one, to it actually landing at your house.
And how much consultation time does that require with the client?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of can be done as much or as little as the client requires. You know, some clients are obviously very, very time poor, and so we try and keep it to a minimum. You know, if you're in a different country, we'll come to you and we'll do as much as we can, obviously. But to get the most out of this, you know, really you need to come and have the full experience, you know, which is probably, you know, 3 consultations.
So if you're a really fussy bastard, you'll put the time in.
Exactly.
How long warranty you give for the battery?
Yeah, so the batteries come with a 5-year warranty, which
years.
is kind of, you know, industry standard, really. And look, you know, in 5 years' time, trust me, there's going to be a better battery that you will want us to swap out for you and put in there.
Sure.
You know, so that's kind of the point. You know, you're not going to want to ride around with 20-year-old batteries in there.
I think that's a good.
The thing is, one concern is the bike is electric. It's very quiet. Yeah. Do you think it's a little bit dangerous on the road?
It's not.
No one can hear me.
Sure. It's not quiet actually. I mean, you've heard it going very, very slowly. So what we've done is we've basically put a gear profile in the gearbox. So if you imagine like an old Group B rally car, you know, with those straight cut gears, and you get that whine, that's effectively what the bike sounds like at any kind of reasonable speed, not kind of walking pace, obviously. So it's not as quiet as you think. If you check out our Facebook page, ARC Vehicle, there's actually some images on there at the moment of the bike riding down the road, and you'll effectively hear what it sounds like.
I just had a question on relating to performance in terms of acceleration, top speed, and what range does the battery cover?
So, as with all electric vehicles, it's how it's ridden. But, you know, we have ridden a lot of miles now, and we know you're looking realistically 200 miles on an easy Sunday ride with your friends. Constant 80 miles an hour, you're looking at 120 miles. And at race pace, you're looking at about 60 or 70 miles. with a charge time of 40 minutes. Obviously, it's a reasonably aggressive position on this bike, so trust me, if you do 100 miles, you're going to want 40 minutes off of it. So,
And are there any numbers for acceleration to 60 and top speed?
Sure, so it's 3.1 seconds 0 to 60, but with it being one gear, that means you don't need to be Valentino Rossi to achieve that. Anyone in this room can effectively get the maximum out of this bike. And in terms of the other question was top speed. So again, it's a little bit limited because it's one gear, so it's limited to 120 miles an hour. But again, with no fairing on it, 120 mile an hour is plenty.
Suitable for track days?
Sorry?
Do you think it'd be suitable for track days?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I do a lot of track riding with the bike at the moment, and I always come back with a smile on my face.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
I think things like the geometry we were talking about, right, feels like a 252
It does, yeah, exactly. It's a lot of fun.
So the jacket and the helmet are, bespokely customised, and also the veneer. But what else of the bike can be, customised for a particular buyer?
Sure. So any of the leather choices or non-leather choices, if that's what you want, colours, stitching, top panel material, wood, carbon fibre, painted, and yeah, the bright work, obviously you've got like a copper style work, but there's other options right behind you in terms of the bright work. And effectively all of the painted components can be left plain carbon fibre or painted any colour that you wish it to be.
Okay, cool. So but is there anything else apart from aesthetics, I suppose?
So we could offer a special commission process, which effectively is where, you're able to design new parts of the bike yourself. So Ferrari and people like that offer that service. Obviously, the bike has to be re-homologated at that point, so it's a very expensive service, and someone that's getting into that process needs to realise that, it's going to be a costly and, time. It's going to take a lot of time.
Indeed. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And again, we mentioned it in the presentation, but the handlebar position and the footrest position is completely bespoke. So that it's like a made-to-measure suit, but in motorcycle form. I was chatting to someone earlier about dropping the footrest down. So if you're not so comfortable with a more aggressive position, you can flatten out the bars, drop the footrest down, and that will be remachined to suit you. So it's not an adjustable thing on the bike. It's a fully bespoke, tailor-made bike for you.
With so much power at the bike, what sort of traction control systems and cornering ABS and all that jazz have you fitted to it?
Yeah, so all of those things. Exactly, ABS, cornering ABS and traction control. In fact, there's over 600 Newton meters of torque available at the rear wheel, so there is no traction control completely off-road mode because I wouldn't have been able to ride it in here. So yeah, no, there's a lot of electronics.
So I was just noting that down, 600 Newton meters, the rear wheel is quite something on a bike. Is this a limited run bike? Is that how you're looking at it? And dare I ask what the price is?
So 399 units. And the price for the bike, everything that we've talked about, the whole service, the helmet, the jacket, all of the bespoking, £90,000.
No, that's 399 sounds quite a lot. Is that over a number of years?
That's over the next 2 years, yeah. Well, starting Q3 next year, and then 2 years from then.
Okay, and is it sort of free of legislation? Because there's things coming in with cars that are restricting speed limiters, etc. Does that affect a bike like this?
There's nothing in the mix that we can see at the moment. Obviously, we speak very closely with the MCIA, which is the Motorcycle Industry Association, about what's coming and what's being lobbied about at the moment. And so far, luckily, we seem to be kind of kept out of a lot of that kind of legislation that comes in.
I think that's a very good radar to keep under. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm just going to say one more thing. One final closing comment. We can announce tonight, exclusively, obviously these are prototypes, it's the first time this bike has been seen running through the doors tonight. We can announce that in 2 weeks' time, at Goodwood Festival of Speed, the Vector will be the first motorcycle up the hill climb in the motorcycle class. So we've been accepted into Goodwood, we are the first motorcycle. I can't begin to stress how important that is. So if you're there, if you're at Goodwood, please do come and see us, come and say hello and look out for the bike on the track and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much, thank you.